but the majority of people certainly would not. And you can see it in the restraint of people who are not turning around and going after neighbors. They are neighbors. There are a million Palestinian, Arab Israelis, not Palestinian, but Arab Israelis living in Israel in normal, regular relations with their neighbors. Whether they are Christian or Jewish neighbors, they are part of the Israeli population. They have elected people from elected MKs, members of Knesset from their own areas who represent the particular interests of that community, whatever those interests are. They are publicly and politically stated and recognized. This is one person whose acts are not forgivable in any way, and who, as do the negative people in either population, needs to be restrained. There needs to be a responsibility on the part of leaders, whether those leaders are the politicians or the doctors caring for people who can be so horribly influenced by what they read in the newspapers.
Okay, Ms. Kara Mustafa, I wanted to get your reaction to that, because I'm a bit confused. At this point, if a politician comes out and says right after the fact that somebody was mentally ill because there was an Israeli and they attacked two Bedouins and a Palestinian, that to me sounds really odd. What do you think?
Well, how far do we go with this interpretation? Osama bin Laden was mentally ill.
The Bedouin are not enemies of Israel.
Go ahead, Ms. Kara Mustafa.
Well, they are ethnic Arabs, and therefore that would make them Untermensch under the Zionist ideology. I think that if you start deciding that those Israelis who commit crimes are easily dismissed as mentally ill, whereas the Palestinians are obviously evil and terrorists, I think it really shows the double standards with which this situation is treated. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to claim that a man who willingly went and stabbed two people from a specific ethnic group, had he been mentally ill, he probably could have just stabbed the first few people he would have come across, which would have been Jewish settlers like himself. But no, he actually went on to murder people of a different ethnic group and a different religious groups, which were obviously the Arab Bedouins of Palestine. And as a result, I think we can clearly state that this was a racist attack. But obviously, the Israelis, having to constantly cover up their crimes, having to repackage their crimes with various definitions, have decided to actually describe this as the act of a mentally ill person. But I suspect in this respect, then maybe the Palestinians will come back and say that the stabbings of Israelis in the past week have actually been done by Palestinian mentally disturbed men.
Mr. Rovera, what would you say to that?
You know, when it comes to stabbings and it comes to the kind of one-to-one, hand-to-hand combat that kind of act requires, I'm not sure that there isn't a level of mental illness in most people who stab. Where the differential comes is when you've got a group of 5 people who organize an attack on a mother and a father with 4 little children in the back seat of a car and blow the bodies of the mother and father apart. That's not mental illness, that's planned political terrorism. And that needs to be led away from, stopped, forbidden. Can we control the acts of all the mentally ill? I wish we could. I don't think we can. And again, I don't know. You bring up a point. I don't know that these were the first people that he happened to see. If that's the case, they could just as well have been Israelis of origin in Arab countries, because if you've ever walked the streets, there are many, many times when you don't know if someone is an Arab Muslim or a Jew from an Arab country whose appearance is very much the same.
Okay, Mr. Rovera, I apologize for interrupting you. We just have a minute left, so I want to give the final word to Ms. Kara Mustafa. Ms. Kara Mustafa, you have a minute. Go ahead with your final word.
Well, I just want to say that the exact same argument can be made of Palestinians. Maybe they just were mentally ill. Maybe they're just organizing some mentally, they were mentally disturbed people who escaped from an asylum and decided to organize in the same way. This idea that you can somehow exonerate the Israeli murderers from crime, but somehow assume and know full well that the Palestinians were noted and were known criminals, I think just shows the double standards. But I think, well, it is an exoneration when you're claiming to not know what happened to the Israeli criminals criminal, but yet somehow can state openly that the Palestinians were committing acts of terrorism. I can simply argue that the Israelis and the Jewish extremists were equally committing acts of terrorism, and there is no way to exonerate them by claiming that the crime was somehow linked to mental disturbances. I think, but this is the type of rhetoric that really has been used by Israel and Israeli apologists for the best part of 5, 6, 10 years now, and I think people are seeing through it increasingly. I think public opinion is very much shifting in favor of the Palestinian narrative precisely because now we're actually seeing through the information and seeing that actually the Palestinians are the victims and the Israelis, despite all their apologies.
Ms. Dover and Ms. Karg, I do apologize. We'll have to continue this conversation at a later date. I do apologize for interrupting both of you. We'll have to leave it there for now, but of course we do sincerely appreciate both of your contributions to this debate. That was Ms. Maxine Dover, journalist and political commentator who had been speaking to us live from New York, and we were also joined by Ms. Hafsa Kara Mustafa, journalist and political analyst who had been speaking to us live from London. And of course, viewers, we do appreciate your insights as posted on our social media pages, and of course for watching. Until next time, have a good night.